What a pleasure to have. Is it important? So, yeah. Hello, Stan. Nice to see you. Hello, Kate. Hope your baby is fine today. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming out to this 8:30 session. And I'm already getting a boost, as you can tell, and I'll try to keep myself a little more relaxed. Welcome to Igniting Innovation, Aphasia, Bragg, and Steel. I have your numbers, so I'll wait till you scramble through and get your pens and paper. I'll read them to you. 3283000. I'll say it again. 3283000. Here's the agenda for today. I'm going to do around 5 minutes or so of some introductory comments and moderate the session. I'm Robin Collins, and I just retired from Western Michigan University as a faculty, and I was the coordinator of the Aphasia Communication Enhancement Program, the ACE program. And I also did 40 years of direct clinical SLP work and home care and outpatient and hospice and inpatient rehab and all of that. Which reminds me, during the presentation, if we say SLP, that means speech language pathologist. I know most of you know that, but I just thought I would say that. After I'm done talking today, we have 6 other participants. Each one is going to give you a 10 to 12-minute presentation about something creative that they've been thinking about. After each presentation, we're going to pause, and there's 5 minutes for you to ask questions, give comments, reflect on something that you've been thinking about, and then we'll go on to the next person. I am the timekeeper, so if I do hold this up, I'm sorry if I need to have you kind of finish up, because we do want to make sure that we get to all 6 presentations. And then at the end, if we have some time, Katie Strong will do a wrap up for us and a call to action. I'm going to talk a little bit about the pathway that brought us here to this presentation today. So back in 2017, Katie Strong and Sandra Glista did a presentation here at MSHA called Embracing the Future Together. And what they were doing was bringing together people who were interested in aphasia in MSHA to ask some questions. What do people with aphasia need in Michigan? What are we doing right now? What should we be thinking about next? And in 2018, Nina Simmons-Mackey researched and wrote a 100-page document called Aphasia in North America. At the end of it, she had a call for action, and there were many bullet points. I put in 2 of them: to improve services for people with aphasia and their families, and also to connect across organizations to identify best available resources. From that, in 2022, 4 of us who are on the panel today, Katie Strong, Becca Johnson, Kate Moses, and myself, presented at MSHA. It was called Aphasia Roundtables. And the idea, again, was to bring people together, have some conversations, and a lot of the focus with that was on aphasia and mental health, because it was identified that this was an important topic, that more ideas needed to emerge and to share together. From that, 2022 to 2023, there were 11 people in Michigan involved in this project called Project Bridge. Project Bridge brings together researchers, clinicians, and people with aphasia to talk about what are some ideas, some research streams that we should be focusing on that are important to people with aphasia. We met virtually 8 times, and then we brought that to closure. And one thing that came from that, we realized, boy, it was so nice to talk with each other, find out what we were doing in different cities, what kind of trainings we were doing, what concerns we had. And that was the kernel of the idea to do today's presentation, because we're hoping to do the same kind of a thing with all of them. And we called it Brag and Steel, which is a name that we stole from Aphasia Access. Aphasia Access is this wonderful organization many of us belong to, focusing on the life participation approach to aphasia. If you go to their website, there's educational videos, and there's a great podcast that they produce also. So what we're hoping from today is that by the end, there'll be at least one new idea that you have, or something else that you want to research more, or that you want to try out, or talk to us about. Like that, so going backwards. Okay, our first presenter is Allison Mezzo. Allison is an SLP at Hope Network Neuro Rehab in Kalamazoo. She's a certified brain injury specialist and a brain injury fundamentals trainer through the Brain Injury Association of America. And she's a clinical educator, and now she is the coordinator of the ACE program at Western Michigan University. So welcome, Allison. I'm sitting over here.
Oh, thanks, Robin, for the introduction.
You're welcome.
Hello, everyone. I'm Allison. Let's get started. This is an awesome theme for the conference, Igniting Innovation. And if we're practitioners, if we're clinicians, we know that our clients give us the best inspiration and they give us the best innovation because they're the ones living with aphasia. And I'm starting my slides today off with some quotes from my clients. I'm working with 4 clients right now on this treatment approach that I'm going to be talking about, and these are quotes that they gave me when I told them that I was going to be talking about it today. And just throughout therapy, they've said this many, many times. So I've noticed that when they're reading, their accuracy is really good. But they'll say words like this. They say, I can't see it, in reference to the word that they're reading. They might be reading a small word or a bigger word, and they just say, I can't see it. Or they might say, I know what that word is. They might say, I can describe it to you, but I just can't say it. And then another one of my clients says, I have to read out loud at work a lot, and it's really hard. And so what I noticed in therapy is their accuracy was really good. And so we were doing all the Orala and multiple oral rereading. We were doing all those treatments, but just something wasn't clicking for them. And I finally figured it out. It was their confidence. Their accuracy was good, but they didn't have any self-confidence to read. Whether that was their doctor's notes to their doctor when they wanted to talk about a few points at a meeting, or one of my clients wanted to speak at his daughter's wedding and he was really nervous about that. Or it could just be other day-to-day things, like reading a text message from a friend. And so, why is confidence important? For those who don't work with people with aphasia, well, aphasia robs people of their confidence. It prevents them from participating in life-valued activities. And that has a lot of consequences, because if they don't have confidence, they withdraw, they isolate. And that increases their risk for mental health conditions, depression, and anxiety. And if we work with people with aphasia, we know that they deal with this every day. And so there aren't really no treatments in aphasia right now that specifically looks at confidence, so I thought I would just create one. And so I know it's a little untraditional to first talk about the data that I've collected, but do it. This is a little untraditional. And so these are my clients. Like I said, it's 4 clients. I see the similar trends. I just have more data points collected on these 2, so that's what I'm highlighting. And so you'll see their baseline confidence scale from, it should be 1 to 10, or 1 to 10. It says 0 on my axis, but 1 would be, I have no confidence. I don't feel good about this. I have no confidence. And 10 would be, I feel really confident about reading this. I feel confident about how I can do this. And so you'll see client A starts with really low confidence when she reads, and she has really good reading accuracy, 99% reading accuracy. But she doesn't feel confident doing it. And then trial 1, after we work through this protocol, it increases. And then it jumps really high to a 7 after we work through the 3rd and the 4th trial, and it doubles by the end. And client B, you'll see he starts at higher level of confidence. And it's really interesting because if you work with people with aphasia, it doesn't matter if they have mild aphasia, mild severity, or very severe, their confidence is impacted across the spectrum of severity. And so he would be ranked as having much more severe aphasia, but he starts at a higher level of reading confidence. But you'll still see that the protocol works for him as well. And you're going to see a quote from him at the end. I'll tell you which one it is. And so I developed this, it's called a confident reading treatment. And what it is, it's a strategy-based treatment. We're teaching reading strategies to help improve the self-confidence to read out loud. Not accuracy, it has nothing to do with accuracy, it has everything to do with confidence, or self-confidence. And it focuses on building confidence and reading skills through lots of practice and personalized strategies. Practice makes confidence. That's what I tell them. We're going to practice, 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 practice. Practice makes confidence. And you'll see I have images here of different reading materials, whether that's actually in a book, reading a recipe, a Kindle, maybe a list of things you need to buy at Target, or notes you want to read off to a friend, thought you have. Could be anything that you want to read or write, and then you want to express out loud. The candidates that I've found that this works best for is those who want to increase their confidence in reading out loud. Most of my clients want to work on reading. They were avid readers, and they want to work on reading again. So a good candidate is somebody who wants to improve their confidence. And also someone who can just read at the word level. This works at the word level too. And they have, relatively good comprehension. And it's great for telehealth or in person, so it's accessible. Some goals that I've wrote and some goals targeted, just some considerations here is helping them improve their self-confidence in oral reading. And that's the foundation here, but it kind of trickles into other improvements. So because of this, then they have better reading fluency. They develop new strategies for reading out loud and overcoming self-doubt. And the best ones on the bottom is they foster a positive attitude towards reading aloud. They now look forward to it. They look forward to participating. My client who says she reads at work, she looks forward now to participating in the IEP meetings that she has to run. She looks forward to it. When we talk about this, it's really important that we make it person-centered and how it relates to the life participation approach to aphasia. And so how does this relate? It acknowledges our clients' emotions and experiences with oral reading. Everyone has a special and unique experience. And it's also flexible and it's customized. It's not a rigid protocol, it's very flexible, customizable, and it meets their unique needs. Like I said, you could work at just the word level, you could work at the paragraph level. Anywhere in between. And so how do we make it person-centered? Well, you use reading interests that are interesting to the person, right? I'm not just going to pick something out of a textbook that I have. I'm going to ask them, what do you want to read about today? One of my clients loves anything sports. Well, I don't know anything about sports, but you can Google something and come up with an article for the session. And then you work with your client to determine what strategy is best. That's going to make sense in a little while. We're going to use errorless practice. We want them to feel successful doing this, not make errors. We support them through that. And then the materials you need for this, you just need reading material, and then highlighters, paper pen, marker board, different colored markers, something fun. I let them pick out what they want to do that day. Most of them don't care, but some of them do care, and that's great. You can pick out the purple marker if you want. So I'm gonna do an overview now of the steps, and then I'm gonna work through each step quickly. So first we're gonna just read. They're gonna read without support. We're gonna get a baseline, and then they're gonna rate their confidence on a scale of 1 to 10. Then we're gonna identify words to target. We're gonna then reread with our confident reading strategies and rate confidence again. Then we repeat that 2 to 3 more times. And then we provide education and we send them home with the word list and the reading passage, right? I said yesterday, for those who were in my cognitive rehab guidelines, therapy is 1% of the week, and the rest of the 99% of the week falls on them. And so send them home with what you did in therapy today. Make a copy of it if you need to keep it for your own data. And then for data collection, like I said, it's just we're rating on a scale from 1 to 10. You could do accuracy considerations, but that's not important here. The important thing here is how they feel about how they're reading, their confidence levels. So step 1, like I said, you're going to direct the client to read the sentence and paragraph, and you're going to ask them to rate their overall confidence. I say, how confident did you feel reading that? How confident do you feel? And they can rank it on a scale from 1 to 10. That's step 1. Step 2. This is an important step. We're really delving into what you're reading. You're going to instruct your client to either silently read or read with you each sentence, and they're going to know what words are hard for them to see. When they're reading it out loud, if they have a hesitation on the word, maybe you might make a little note of that, but it's up to them to determine what word is hard for them to see. And they highlight it, they underline it, then they write it on a separate piece of paper to practice in isolation. They might write it out again. We might talk about what the definition of that word is. They're going to practice their articulation. Okay, just write it on a separate page. Here's an example. So my client, like I said, who loves sports, these are the words that he had a hard time seeing. So we folded, and he reads in all caps, so everything is in all caps. That's just how he reads best. And then here on the bottom right, she likes her words that she emphasizes in all caps and in a different color. Purple's her favorite color, so that's what she decided. And then you'll see this is the same client in this top right and bottom left corners. She prefers the highlighting method, and then she has her yellow pad of paper right next to it to translate those words in isolation on the right. And then this is the most fun. Step 3. After we have identified the words that are hard to see, and we've practiced them in isolation, we're ready to reread again. And this time, when we're reading, we're going to emphasize and exaggerate the highlighted words. And what this does is this tells their brain to anticipate words that are hard for them to see. We've already practiced them. We know that they know they're successful reading it in isolation. We're putting it now back into the sentence or back into the paragraph, reading it again and emphasizing it. I'm gonna demonstrate this. Whoops. So if I'm here, I'm going to say his name is Michael. He lives in Toronto, Canada. He is a lawyer. He enjoys mountain biking. I have a client who likes to do it in her British accent. Or who likes to say it in a really low voice like this. And that helps her best. And that's amazing. So we also incorporate a lot of humor and exaggerating. And then after that, we rate the confidence again. This is where I see the biggest gain in the confidence at step 3. Step 4 is we're just repeating it again. After they're rereading it in step 3, they might find more words that they need to isolate and read again. So, it's evolving, it's continuous. They might find more words. We're just going to do it again and rate confidence again. And then 5, as I said, we're going to just, we're going to provide education, We're gonna send them home with their word list and their reading passage to practice. And I showed you my data, my objective data, right? But this is why we do it, right? This is why it's created. It's because of these quotes. I asked them, so how do you like what I'm doing? I'm going to be presenting it. And one of my clients said, oh yeah, this really increases my confidence. Another client who had kind of a negative view towards reading, he said, this makes me want to read more.
Yes.
And then my one client who works as a paraprofessional in a school, she said, this has significantly helped me at my job. And she's even teaching her kids, she's a special ed parapro, she's teaching her kids this strategy so they can be better readers. And then my one client who likes sports, he says, I'm the boss at reading now. So this QR code here is, if you scan it, it brings up the template, the whole protocol. I've even added some goals that you can think of. I wrote out just some documentation samples and some goals, and it has the step-by-step overview. So you can scan that here. So thank you so much. How do you feel? Please feel. I sure can.
It's in the handout too, right? Is it? It's in the handout also, so.
Any questions?
I do.
How bad?
So the data that you showed ahead of time, which you normally should show later.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
That was Ingrid's idea. That was my husband's idea.
That amount of growth happened within one session.
Well, the data was collected on an average of 25 trials for client A and 20 trials for B. But it's pretty similar. Each session is going to be different based on what they want to read that day.
So each session, like they might do 3 trials, one session might do 10 trials.
We just do one pretty much per session.
Really?
Yeah, that's all we get through. Yep. Is that your question? Yeah.
How long of a treatment course have you been doing this? How many sessions?
Oh, yep. So for client A, I've been doing it for 25 sessions. Well, it's really been like 50 sessions. I just started taking dad after, I've been seeing her for 3 years. So I've been doing this now for about a year. Yep. Can anybody see yourself using this with any of your clients? Awesome. Yeah.
Did you find that a lot of the words repeated, or did they tend to be confident with those ones kind of tucked away and then it was all new ones?
Both.
Okay.
My one client, she said, oh, we had this word last week. This is the same word. And she independent, fluently, perfect. She's like, I got this word. And it just depends, with Alexia, sometimes it can be those little tiny words, but it's really unpredictable. So that's why every session's very different. I have a client who takes a picture of the word list, and she has like on her notes app on her phone, she just keeps a running list of words, practice, and speech, so she can practice those at home. Yeah.
So if I'm understanding correctly, sometimes their accuracy is really great. So they might be circling words that they've done perfect.
Yeah. Exactly. It's all how they perceive it that day in therapy. Yeah.
What setting are you seeing these?
Outpatient.
Outpatient.
Yep, outpatient.
So for 3 years, get insurance.
I do. Yep. All right. Yep. My progress notes have really improved over the years. I see them every other week, most of them. But we know people with aphasia get better year after year. So they deserve really good therapy. Yep.
It's great because often as clinicians, we're not looking at always the competence level, we're looking at accuracy time.
Exactly, and that's what I was running into. They were only comfortable reading in the privacy of our speech sessions. They weren't doing it out where they wanted to do it. And the CCRSA, the Communication Competence Rating Scale, is an awesome approach, but it doesn't ask anything about reading. And a lot of our clients want to improve their reading skills. Thank you so much.
Okay, next, I'm going to welcome up Becca Johnson. Becca is a stroke survivor and an aphasia advocate. She has a strong interest in accessible mental health services for people with aphasia. And I will mention too, when I said that we were on this Zoom for a year and a half, Project Bridge, all of us who are doing this presentation were involved in it Zoom. Right? Okay. Here are some of the ways Becca has advocated. You've been involved with Project Bridge.
Yes.
You're a member of the Aphasia and Friendship team. Co-author of a peer-reviewed article. She's on the Aphasia Education and Advocacy team. And an active member of the Lansing Area Aphasia Support Group. Welcome. Yes. No. There's just no this. Yes.
Just give us a minute to get ourselves situated here.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Becca Johnson. I'm a faithful. Yes. Information how to send a motivation message.
Yeah, I just need a minute to get our like. Is if I get
The batteries are like on.
Do you want me to turn up the volume? Yeah.
We're changing batteries.
Like literally, the batteries are on.
Here. Back it up.
Aphasia. So you're gonna hear the.
Okay, now I have to remember like the positive of mind that's already written. Sorry. No.
Ships with communication using messages and iPad. One characters appointments. Taking appointments. Happening with the doctor. Just write and time yourself. One. Number two. Tactics. Pharmacy. Start off your page. Prescription. Using iPad to talk to them. I use yes and no a lot. Yeah. Since three. Family, no, it's family and friends.
So we've got some examples here. I know they're kind of small, but Becca is the master at using messaging. So we're going to teach you how to do this. So throughout this, we're going to give you some examples, and this is one of the examples that we are showing you. So there'll be more. So
Yes.
hold on. Okay, all right. Ready?
5,
Number
2,
Four.
no.
4.
4. Yes.
It is a good derivation. Okay. All right.
Okay. Calendar appointment. Using iPad for care appointment to talk. I use TV Snap and my iPad. Yes.
So here's an example of her hair, which is probably one of the more important appointments of our daily routine, but how she uses her communication device to communicate with her
Yes.
hairdresser.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Number
5. I use TV Snaps on my
iPad.
iPad.
I forgot.
Right.
Number 5.
Bus. Bus. Yes.
So, but Becca uses public transportation quite a bit in Lansing, so she uses this to communicate with her drivers on the bus.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Okay.
So, how can we solve this problem? Yes. Yes.
First,
We need to challenge how we message.
okay.
Simplify language. Yeah.
So we've got some examples here for you.
For to the examples, this.
Wow, it's not simple.
No. Yes.
To
To this. Finally, we add emojis. Yes. Amazing. Now can our clients choose these techniques?
Step
1.
a
Short
message.
message. I know.
Mhm.
Yes. Yep.
Step
2. Clear sentences.
Step
3. Easy words. 4. Good grammar. Now it's time for you to get
Fun.
ready for your phone. Yes. Yes. Ready?
Yes.
Rethink this message using brain steps.
Can you see the message?
Yep.
Okay. We're going to give you a minute or two to get busy.
How are you doing?
Damn it.
Good.
Yes.
Ready?
Good.
How that
Goes. Yes.
Good.
Good.
You're better
That's good. Yours.
Yes. Here. I still had too many words. I used emojis, but I had too many words.
What's Saturday? Saturday.
Yeah, I didn't see.
There might have been
Yeah.
a different mess, there
Right.
might have been, this is an actual example, and there might have been more in the conversation, so.
Okay.
You could even just do the bottom.
That was
This was a conversation with her sister, and we just took it off of her phone. Okay?
Yeah, that was, yes.
Wow.
Okay.
Hi, I'm wondering how well you use the little abbreviations and acronyms. For example, on that, it said, let me know,
Yeah.
and I just put LMK.
No.
No, not really have. Okay.
No. What's the T?
TV snap.
What is that?
It's a system she has on her iPad.
Oh, T. Snap.
TD Snap is what it's called.
Oh, yes. I'll say some. Yes. Oh, it is? Yeah. Oh, it's done. Oh,
Like a latch.
yeah. Yes.
And you can just buy it.
Instead of the whole total. Positive.
I am a patient, but I still understand everything you say.
Bravo.
Does it ever help you to use emojis when you're talking with someone in person? No.
Yes.
Have you ever ran into any issues like in the hair salon where they use something you didn't want?
No. Yes. Yes.
Do people respond pretty well to you using the TV snap?
I know. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Patience. I know.
How long did it take to kind of develop this with the texting, or how long did it take to practice?
Learning her how to do it.
Yeah, how to modify the message.
How did you,
Yeah.
I think we both can answer this, but how did you learn how to do this?
I don't know.
It's just obvious to
It
her.
just happened.
I think.
Yeah.
Because not everyone, like I have a patient now who he's always trying to, use Messenger and the messages, it just doesn't.
Did
so
someone,
hard.
did you have any help in
No.
therapy with this?
No.
She came up with all of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess I'll just say, you changed how I text.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yes.
so it is,
You're
yeah.
adding the emojis now.
And I'm shortening what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Also,
Yes. I know.
it takes some thinking. It really,
That's what I was gonna
Yes.
ask too.
Yes.
Are you training people that you're texting to send shorter messages to, or it's just how you respond?
how do people respond to your texts? Do they do what you do?
No. I don't.
Other than
Yes.
me?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good.
With OpenAI and some of the platforms, do you know if there's any platforms being developed that will take large pieces of copy and kind of extract it into more useful language?
We haven't explored that.
Yes.
There probably is, but we haven't explored that. It's a great question.
On the topic of training community partners, I love the example you gave. Actually said to your partner, in a way, how to respond. Is
Yes.
it thumbs up? Is it thumbs up, right?
Yes.
Like your way saying, this is how you respond to me. I thought that was the next part of the example.
Well, and I was thinking too, this might be adapted nicely to train caregivers, like if a person is having more of a receptive or reading problem, to use it to train caregivers to send messages this way. Yes, so you want to use it both ways.
We were talking earlier about, Becca just says her message and puts the emoji in right away. I write my message, revise it, and then go back and add the emojis. So what she thinks is, I've got work to do.
How is your reading comprehension for other messages that are sent to you?
How much do you understand, like something like?
Yes.
Little bit. Okay,
Yeah.
so it,
Yes.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, this worked for everybody.
Of
This,
course.
you know, I mean, so we can really learn how to like make things
I would appreciate
accessible
that.
for everybody.
and it doesn't surprise me that you were able to learn so quickly, because it's how you communicate.
Right.
Absolutely. So it comes natural.
All right.
Thank you.
Isn't this exciting? I'm so glad you're all here together with us. We're all getting to hear each other's ideas. Okay. Now, the next person who's going to present is Kate Moses. And for those of you who may know her, you might notice she's not here today. But I'm going to show you why. Oh, she just delivered a newborn. She sent us her video, so she's still going to be presenting to you today. Kate is a board member of the National Aphasia Synergy and also of Just Ask Aphasia Stroke Knowledge. She's an SLP and the owner of Moses Center. And before, she worked at the University of Michigan Aphasia program for many years. And she wanted me to say that she's a die-hard Spartan fan.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm sorry I'm not able to join you in person. Becca is always a tough act to follow, but bear with me as I jump in here with who's the expert. So, spoiler alert, while Jackie Hinckley is very much an expert, she's not the answer to that question. The experts that I will be chatting about today are, in fact, the people living with aphasia. So I won't spend the next 10 minutes bragging about how much of an expert Dr. Hinckley is, though surely I could. Instead, I just wanted to start by highlighting a paper of hers that prompts a change in the clinical paradigm. If you haven't read it, I encourage you to do so. It's a pretty inspiring read. In short, Jackie is reflecting on having her client lead a session by teaching Jackie how to play piano. And there are some really beautiful insights that Dr. Hinckley shares throughout the paper that will really change your mindset and clinical practice, as she highlights the therapeutic benefits for both the person with aphasia and the clinician when the tables are turned and the person with aphasia is given the lead role or prompted as the expert to teach the clinician something new. So why turn the tables? Why is this so important? Number one, it impacts how they feel about themselves. It's a boost for self-esteem. It can increase confidence and improve their sense of self. It can impact how they feel about their identity and help with identity reconstruction by consolidating new identity through meaningful activities and engagement. and it improves function. So by engaging in kind of these simulated processes, such as, teaching something or describing like parts of their career, or maybe engaging in an activity that they haven't done since prior to their stroke or brain injury, it can improve their self-confidence with doing that task and improve their problem solving and managing of emotions and cognitive and linguistic skills while doing those activities, as well as give the clinician incredible insight into functional communication skills or areas that would not have otherwise seen like kind of traditional therapy activities. And so, we talk about this all the time, how SLPs wear many, many hats. I know we could list several other roles today, but I wanted to focus on one in particular, and that is the clinician as a learner. As we are putting people with aphasia in the expert seat as a learning clinician, our roles are really to facilitate communication, help them to access language, maybe access multimodal supports that can help with completing or success of a task, a functional role. And we can do that by scaffolding as much as we need to. And then the beautiful piece is along the way, we get to help them identify strengths and barriers, and then maybe create some supports to help them feel more success and be able to re-engage in some of those really meaningful activities or roles. So I'm going to start by kind of describing the process of one clinical example, and then I'll share several kind of quick examples at the end. But my first example is of an individual I work with who was a fluent English speaker, but her native language is Hindi. And she has significant apraxia of speech in addition to her aphasia, but she's an awesome multimodal communicator and is able to use her phone in really creative ways to support communication. I don't know if this frequently happens in any of your sessions, but something that kept occurring with us is she would say something in response to a conversational question that I asked her, like, what did you do over the weekend? Or, oh, why are you wearing a bindi today? And she'd provide some telegraphic content, like single words, but I wouldn't be able to recognize or understand what she was saying or trying to convey. Does anybody else have these moments in sessions where you're like, they just say. These I found are some of the best for putting on our learner caps and having the person with aphasia really step into that teaching role. This is a photo that she shared with me that she had on her phone, and I gave her a written visual of what I heard her say initially. And she kind of laughed at me and gave me another word trying to give more content. And again, I wasn't quite sure what I was hearing. And so I gave her the written visual. And you can see by my awkward, head tilt that, and her laughing at me, that this happens quite frequently. And so, what happens next, and how I put her in the expert role, is I give her a prompt like, I'm hearing something like this, is that correct? And then she can tell me yes, or she can tell me no. And then not only am I putting her as the expert of the topic or content, but I like to go through and have her be the expert of her aphasia also. It's a great way for promoting some self-awareness of her communication. And she gets to navigate, is this an apraxic error? Is this a word in Hindi that I'm just not familiar with? Is this an aphasic error or difficulty with word retrieval? Or is this something else? So this is a list of everything that we went through in this session while the communication repair was framed as a teaching lesson. So we started with functional SFA. We weren't able to get like a category or for her to identify, this is a location or this is the name of a deity or whatever. So We then try using multimodal communication, or she tried using her phone and technology supports. The beautiful thing that I love using with so many clients is doing a collaborative Google search, where you have them kind of provide the content that you would use to search, and then you can go through together and navigate results based on that content. Through our collaborative Google search, a lot of times the person with aphasia will see something that'll trigger and elicit more content, or it'll help them navigate further down the path where what they're trying to say or share. And then we also did expansion of content once we found what we were looking for, which led to some oral reading and creation of personalized supports. So the next few slides are just some visuals of what we used. So after we found what we were looking for on Google, we did some WH questions where I asked her some follow-up questions about it for her to share and identify key content that she was intending to kind of say. And then we formulated some functional statements using that content. And then finally, we made a resource. So her and I happen to have an ongoing resource that I add to frequently. I call it my cheat sheet. And that's because a lot of times she will give a Hindi word or a term that I'm not familiar with. And so all of those moments where she is in the teaching role, I make a resource and add to my cheat sheet for different terminology that she teaches me, or cultural or religious aspects that I didn't know about. What's really beautiful about a resource like this is that it's intended to help the clinician, but it really doubles as a functional resource for the person with aphasia to use with friends and family, or when sharing or referencing pertinent topics. And so this is a list of just like examples that she and I have done together, resources that we've made that she has also been able to use at home. Some other examples like describing dishes and ingredients, having the person with aphasia share personal anecdotes about their childhood or moments that were important in their life, or maybe prized possessions. And the really cool piece about this is that if you as the clinician are able to putting the person with aphasia in the expert seat in your sessions, that care partners or family members or friends are able to witness, what a beautiful way to model these conversations and giving the person with aphasia that like confidence boost, and for the family members to hopefully be able to take that and do that at in this case, I had nothing to do with this. This is just a rock star family member, but her daughter, I just wanted to share because I thought it was such a cool idea. Her daughter took all of these short stories or like personal anecdotes that her mother shared and typed them up and made a personalized book for her, short stories about her life. And she gave it to her as a birthday gift, and they now use it as like a reading tool. And also what a beautiful piece that she can share with her friends and other family members about sharing her life experience. And so this is just a list of just 10 prompts or activities that you could do to get started. Most importantly, if you're not sure where to start, all you have to really do is ask. It could be prompted by just simple conversational questions, or personal questions about themselves or specific events. And some of our clients are not able to provide really novel content initially. And so maybe you don't know much about them, and if that's the case, then I just want to share this resource. The Live card might be a really nice place to get started. We don't have hardly any information about their hobbies or personal interests or anything like that, especially those folks with more receptive aphasia, who oftentimes need that really context-based treatment to facilitate a lot of good functional communication. These are like great types of activities for them, where you can physical manipulatives or lots of visuals to scaffold the conversation and have them feel some success as the expert or the teacher, essentially. And so lastly, maybe if there's any time for discussion questions, I want to leave you with this. How are you going to put your clients in the expert role next week? Know you all are creative minds. Maybe we can take some time to share some of your ideas or thoughts on that. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out or contact me. There is my email, kate@mosescenter.org, and my phone number. But happy MSHA, everyone, and thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, Kate. We're recording sure. What do you think? Her question. Can you think of ideas that you might bring with your clients now about bring up their expert? Yes.
Perfect opportunity. I have a patient that does a piano and she's a singer. She did teach me to play a little piano.
Teaching the client, teaching her to play piano. Yeah. Anyone else? An idea or something you've done? Yeah.
This is personal, but my mother has mild cognitive impairment and it's really presenting as a language thing, so possibly beginning of aphasia or something, but I'm thinking about genealogy, like she knows all about the family tree and reading maybe like a book or, some kind of visual of who all these people are and gathering photographs.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Making a booklet with pictures and ideas about her life. And I'll just make a comment that I did that with my mother when she had dementia, where she was able to express this, and it became this booklet. And as she unfortunately progressed through skilled nursing and home health and hospital, this booklet went with her, so that when other caregivers met her in the hospital, they could see she was a teacher. Oh, get cross conversation. Yes.
I was just gonna say, I did a very similar thing with a client. We did a family tree, but it was a poster. She wanted it right in her apartment. So when her family came, she could describe, and when friends were over, it was in her kitchen. It's huge with all the photos. So, and it could take pictures, or word cloud words.
Yes.
I was maybe interpreting her and talk entirely differently. I was picturing the client being the expert of where they wanted to go in a particular session. So I worked with a 70-year-old who was in skilled nursing, but before his stroke, he was a singer and a musician and band. He played all these instruments and had his brothers and everything. But I would come in and he had so much more to say than just a board, and he would communicate to me that he wanted me to be with him and call his brother. So he was the expert of what he needed to do that day, or he needed to meet with me and the director of nursing. He had something to talk about. He wanted me to help facilitate that. But he was leading what his life approach, I guess, was at the moment each visit.
And he knew that you as a clinician were open to that kind of thing.
Well, yeah.
Coming in and saying, this is what I need to work on today. And we would always tell our students, let go of that lesson plan. This is what.
Exactly. I didn't have to plan. He planned it every time.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thanks for all your questions and comments. We'll move on. Next, we have Christy McFarland. Christy is an SLP with Integrated Rehab Services, additionally certified in LSVT Loud and Medicine. She's worked in all medical settings, and like me, diagnoses with stroke, Parkinson's, and traumatic brain injury as specializations too. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. So I am Christy. I have worked in all these settings and have experienced the challenges and the joys of all of these different settings and types of people and stages of their process and recovery that we work with them. I wanted to talk about really the family member buy-in. I think one of the things that we've talked about today are some of these really great ideas for therapy, and how we can improve people's life out in the real world. And we're hearing sort of this lack of confidence that comes through. And we might see these people really blossoming with confidence, being able to use their tools, using their strategies really well in our treatment sessions, but then they go home. And Allison, as you said, we see them for 1%, maybe 2% of their week. The rest of their time, they're out on their own. And we really want to be able to maximize their ability to use what we're teaching them or what they're building their competence on. So that's what this talk is about. As we know, one of the big questions is, why should we educate family? Again, mostly because family are really the experts on our patients themselves. They know themselves as well. We know what works in their systems, and our job is to help bridge the gap between the new challenges that aphasia might be revealing in their life to how they can get back to mastering their other life. So as you can see, we want people with aphasia and their care partners to have access to information. There's all different types of information that might be available to them. And I think that also, depending on the setting you're in, is really going to impact the types of education you have available. I think one of the areas that gets overlooked quite a bit is the mental health component. And I think that's something that is really important at all stages of rehab that we're really addressing and we're able to provide to not only the person with aphasia, but their support system. Obviously, we need to have information about the actual type of stroke, what aphasia is, apraxia, any of the other challenging diagnoses that they come up with, and to recognize that as we move through the continuum of care, their education needs will also be changing. We also know that literature suggests that care grounded in evidence improves outcomes for patients and their families. So if we can educate care partners in evidence-based practices and facilitate their communication with their loved one, that will obviously lead over into carryover and improve their quality of life. And then also, we all know that ASHA supports family-centered care. And I think that is something that is really important to remember. And again, partnering with them, we might be the experts in aphasia rehab, but we need to be working with them as the experts in their own family. So I think one of the biggest challenges of the buy-in is having the time to actually meet with families. I think that these are some of the 3 main areas that I found through research that are looking at the top barriers for working with people. When you look through them, you can see that the lack of access to the treating clinician. I know back to my days in acute care, it was almost impossible to meet with families for much time. People are getting taken off to different tests and procedures. Our schedules get changed. We have to go answer something else. And so we don't have the actual designated time to speak with families. Also, I think that families can be highly overwhelmed. They aren't always focused on specifically aphasia at that time. They're trying to make sure that their loved one is stable, that things are moving in the right direction, and they get overwhelmed. So you might have done a phenomenal bang-up job of educating them, giving them all the supports, but they're probably not going to remember all of it down the road, unfortunately. Once you leave that, you're looking at rehab. And again, it might be hard to have access to the clinicians. Schedules change. You may or may not be able to have family members coming in. You might be doing joint sessions. Things change. And so it can be hard to have access. And then by the time they get to outpatient, then you're stuck with, by that time, the family members might have had to return to work and other friends are bringing the person to their appointments. So again, that access is really important. Aphasia rehab can be hard to understand. I'm sure all of us have heard that expression when you've checked in with families. They've heard the term aphasia and they know it has something to do with word finding, but they can't really remember anything else. And it's almost like you're re-educating from ground zero. And then the structure is lacking for care partner check-in. So especially as you've moved through the continuum of care, if you're looking more at that outpatient or rehab facility, even home care, sometimes it can be hard to find the time and the structure to meet with family members. I've also heard frequently that the care partners or family members are hesitant to talk about some of the issues that they're experiencing, particularly in front of the person with aphasia. They don't want to upset them, or they feel like if they're talking about it during our scheduled therapy time, it's taking away access to their actual care. So it can be really challenging to find that structure. Let's see here. So now that we know the barriers, we have to focus on how we can achieve the care partner buy-in. And I think that this is a really important part. And I think, at least for my own practice, once you can actually manage to get the buy-in, you see that generalization, you see the skills taking off, and you see that confidence, which we've been talking about today, quite a bit improve. So one new thing that's out here, I don't know if you're all familiar, that 2 new CPT codes have been added to allow for billing for education without the person with aphasia present. And so this can be really helpful. I have found that we have a lot of critical conversations, where things are breaking down. Just this week, I had a patient who has had multiple strokes. He's at home, he's doing okay. And when he comes to, I'm doing telehealth with him, when he comes to the table, everything's happy, everything's roses. He was in the bathroom and his wife was telling me, please, we have to do something. He is so impulsive. He's going to the bathroom, and on his way to the bathroom, he's peeing all the way down the floor. She didn't want to talk about this in front of him, but this is something that we obviously need to address. And so with having this code and him actually in the bathroom, we had a few minutes to be able to talk about this, come up with some visuals, come up with a plan to help. And then, again, access to care. I asked her to email me back within 24 hours to give me an update of what was going on. So she had a way to see what was going on, and I could respond to tweak whatever needed to be tweaked if that was the case. But these new codes are great. Make sure you start to explore them and use them. Add that into your documentation as well.
Are those for phone call too, or the in-person invitation?
I believe it's in person. I think telehealth in person kind of thing. I don't think you can do phone calls, but that's a really good question that I don't know the answer to.
I'll look it up.
Thank you.
Are a lot of insurances covering those, or just Medicare?
Medicare is covering it for now. I haven't actually billed.
Is or is not?
Is.
Auto is. Auto is too.
Medicare, yes, but I don't know about the privates yet. I haven't gotten my reimbursement yet. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just seems like it could be a little bit sensitive. Have you said something to them in advance, I'm gonna consider this as part of the treatment and let them know that this is something that's being billed for, just because they might think I'm having this nice conversation and now I'm having to pay for some of this.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do let them know. I talk about education as being definitely part of it. I prefer to do education if possible with the family member, with the person with aphasia there. But yes, we will absolutely supplement, and I am clear about that. Yeah. Okay, good questions. So to continue with this is where I really want to focus on. I think these 2 bullet points are probably the most important and are the things that we should be thinking about, how to do more of this when we are working with our patients. I think that oftentimes access can be challenging, and so that's where, again, if you're having people who want to be a part of a treatment plan and they are unable to attend, you can use your phone or the patient's phone to record a portion of the session, or you can go over explanations or training for information. You can record it and send it as a video to the care partner with their permission that they are able to send and receive that kind of information. But there's ways to work around the 4 walls and just you and the patient in the room together. I think that email also can be really helpful, where you can get back and forth with people. It's in writing, which can help with them to be able to process it over time. They can look back and reference information. Our notes are clearly outlined in there as well. I think, again, the biggest part that I use the family member buy-in is to help identify for high priority needs. A little bit later, I'll be talking about a case study that I had, but I feel like once you have the families reporting the concerns that they're having at home, you can really target those in treatment. You can come up with some strategies to work around it. It can be highly effective. Once it is, it builds the patient's confidence in the treatment session. And then when you carry it over with the family, it's rewarding for everybody. Helps to limit that isolation, helps to limit that frustration. So inviting the family member or care partner in to participate directly in treatment sessions has been awesome for me. I do a lot of telehealth at the moment, and so to have people coming into a telehealth session has been great. They can observe what's going on, they can see the materials, they can record part of their session on their phone. to model it for themselves later on or to disseminate the information to their other family members. So anyways, I would highly encourage people to start thinking about ways that they can bring family members in to follow up with Kate's access of having the patient be the expert. The same thing can happen in our sessions when we're even there. We're having the care partner then take over and work with that person to see how they can then facilitate, where you're also working to help train them on how to better implement strategies that you're teaching in the session. So most important is that improved successful communication between person with aphasia and their care partner and family member can facilitate improved quality of life, lessen depression for all persons with aphasia, family members, care partners impacted by the aphasia. I think this is really key. And I think that really looking at quality of life and looking at how aphasia affects the whole family, not just one person, that it really helps to get everybody on the same page and to work forward. And also by having that family member buy-in, hopefully there can be more trust so that both parties can be more vulnerable about their frustrations, about the challenges, and about the successes and things that are going well. So I have a case study. I thought this was a great case. I was fortunate to work with her. I will call her Linda. She is a 69-year-old woman who had left MCA stroke about 4 months prior. I met her and her family after about 3 months of subacute rehab. She was told that she had plateaued and that there was no further treatment that would be beneficial for her. And I was a little shocked because she was making huge gains while I was working with her. I saw her via telehealth. We did twice-a-week sessions. And she was having her daughter and son-in-law living with her temporarily while she was trying to get back on her feet. And they were both working very busy schedules and were really not available for speech therapy sessions. They were really hoping that I would do the education and work on the communication processes, and then she would just sort of improve. However, she had a huge family, and one of her sisters was just one of her best friends, lived in Florida and was retired and said, "Can I come?" And so with telehealth, gave her the link. She would join us 1 or 2 sessions a week, and it turned out to be a catalyst like no other. She was able to participate. We were able to go through whatever aphasia treatment we were working on. We were able to identify the goals that were most important to her, as well as the barriers, which her family was very widespread. She was having to communicate mostly on the phone or via FaceTime, and that was really challenging with her current level of function. So working with the strategies and then allowing her sister to help cue and start taking over with some of that and building up both of their confidence. They would at first ask me lots of questions, be texting me or emailing me, asking if this was the right way to do it. But then with our frequent visits together, I could observe, sort of sit back and be more of a consultant than being the actual speech therapist 100% of the time. It built both their confidence. The sister then went on to share all of the information with her siblings, as well as with the son and daughter, or daughter and son-in-law that she was living with. And there was just this blossom of communication. She was able to navigate FaceTime. She was able to navigate those phone calls and was able to make quite a bit of progress. I think the other thing that was really interesting with this particular case is she was newly widowed, and she was trying to re-navigate her trust. And in order to do that, she had to have a phone call with an attorney that could only be her. She could have no other help, and despite her aphasia, she had to be able to navigate this phone call. We had no idea what the questions were going to be. We had no idea how she was going to do this. And so we went about where the family was providing basic biographical information, which I had access to most of it, but helped with some of the other things. We practiced some of those questions. We practiced some general ideas I had Googled online to see about basic questions and see how she could process and answer those. And again, I think once she actually did it, none of those questions were probably asked. I think she said 1 or 2 of them had been, but not much of what we'd actually worked on had been addressed. But the confidence of working on it ahead of time, having the family support around her, really seemed to bolster her. She was able to do well enough that she got through that initial screening. They decided she was able to go ahead and make her trust. And then at that point, she was able to work with family members to also support her through this communication process for the trust. So I feel like, again, it's kind of a great study of how really using the family to help direct care, also to then share and spread the use of the communication tools and strategies can be really helpful. That's all I got.
Have you ever had a patient be like unaware that their family member was talking to you about issues that maybe they were having at home, and then like get maybe offended or hurt by the fact that they're like that they were kind of left out of the loop?
That's a really great question. I try really, really hard to avoid that. I think that probably happened a long time ago to me, and that's when I learned my lesson, that I am very upfront with my patients and their family members. If I do have a family member that says, this is a problem, I don't want you to say that I said anything, then we have to come up with a way that that conversation will come up in the treatment session. Maybe not from their direction, but I can ask it as a question. Have you ever had any trouble with these kinds of things? And if the caregiver is then present, the patient might say no, kind of like that gentleman I was talking about who was urinating on the floor. We brought that out immediately. He came back to the table and we addressed it as a group of 3. So I try really hard to not get myself in that situation. I think really direction and being honest and upfront with everybody is your best way to go. You can get creative at how you sort of navigate that. Any other questions for me?
I just have a statement. I mean, I don't know how you address it, but I've had times when family members have wanted to talk to me and I'm thinking of maybe making a phone call later. And when I work with a client that day, I'll say, maybe your sister or your brother called and they wanted to talk to me about a few things. Is it okay if I share information with them? And they would either say no or yes, and I abide by that. So if I know the call is coming, I can kind of get their buy-ins.
Absolutely, and I agree with you 100%. If I always ask permission from my people. I also make sure I have it in writing that I have consent to share information, and who I can share that information with. If I don't, I will ask, and if I do get a question that I am not allowed from the patient to say something, I will just say, I'm sorry, I can't answer that information, HIPAA, and you might want to address that with your loved one.
Oh, those are just reminders that there was a talk on this. I think it's recorded someplace on SIG 15. And then the next slide is just a reminder of the codes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, face to face.
Okay, speaking of which, voice, going to introduce Katie Strong. Katie leads the Strong Story Lab at Central Michigan University. I know there's at least one student and maybe more here who's been in Katie's lab, where she explores how clinicians can support people with aphasia to rebuild their identity by co-constructing stories. She's a founding member of the Lansing Area Aphasia Support Group. Katie is an MSHA Fellow. Woo! And a MSHA Honors recipient and a Tavistock Trust for Aphasia Scholar. The project bridge that I had spoken about, she was and is the Midwest Regional Coordinator. She is now the president-elect for CAPSID, for the Council of Academic Programs for Communication Sciences and Disorders. And I mentioned Aphasia Access has podcasts. She is one of the Aphasia Access Conversations podcast hosts. So you can search for that.
Well, loving all the conversations today and seeing the thread between confidence and mental health and advocacy. And I'm here today to talk to you about how you might be able to start your own support group, or at least know how to connect to other people with support groups. But so my job today is to see if I can give you some ideas about how you might be able to not just start one, but keep one going. So So I think, Margaret Mead was a very wise individual, but it's a good reminder that you can't do support groups alone. I mean, support group in and of itself brings people together, but also starting and having one go on, if we really need to have an amazing group of individuals. But it doesn't take much also to get things off the ground. So hopefully I'll give you some ideas about how we can do that today. So are support groups important?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So what I'm going to show you are a couple of screenshots from a journal article. Yep, peer-reviewed journal article, aphasia-friendly access journal article version. The link is in our handout, but about why support groups are important. So this is from the support group that wrote this, but that, aphasia can make people feel sad, lonely, and isolated. And speech therapy doesn't always help with those things. Hope we're getting better at that, but we can't do it alone. Aphasia groups are places where people with aphasia can come together. Aphasia groups can help people feel happy, supported, and confident. Seems like we didn't plan this theme, but we're in sync, so. Not all places have an aphasia group. People don't write much about aphasia groups, which was their advocacy for putting this journal article together. But it can be hard to know what a group is and how to start one. Also, bless you. So, aphasia groups have actually been documented to support mental health. Okay, so the STEP psychological care model is kind of going in the aphasia literature. I'm not sure if you all have heard about that here before, but if we think about like the response to intervention triangle from the schools where like you start at the bottom and you give everybody support, and then each level moving forward is a little more specialized. That's exactly what this STEP psychological care model is, and advocating for all stroke survivors to be able to have access to these great things. But in this level 1 and level 2 area where we as speech pathologists can have a role, support groups have been identified as a level 1 intervention. So that makes support groups not just nice to have, but actually I think essential to have. So the question here this morning is, could you start a support group, right? I've started one, so, but I'm challenging you to think about how you might be able to start one if you don't have one in your community. So a wordy slide, but I can't believe it, but 20 years ago, I saw a need and I reached out to a couple of colleagues and asked them, like, hey, there are things that I see the clients that I'm working with that I can't always cover in sessions, and I feel like, is there something we could do to start here in our Lansing community about supporting people with aphasia? Some of the clients that I worked with had never met another person with aphasia. They had been living with aphasia for years, decades, months. It doesn't matter the time, right? Feeling isolated and alone. Also, I saw that families needed a place to connect. So Chris Schneider, who is a fabulous person, and I feel like she's maybe looking down on us today from above, and Brooke Fromeyer joined me in starting this group. We had no idea what we were doing. We did reach out to the National Aphasia Association and the Stroke Association at that time to get some supports, but we thought that the three of us together. We were each working, and one was at the major hospital, one was at a brain injury facility. At that time, I was working for the local university, and we thought together having that kind of triage of where we might find referral services would be important. So we started it small and tried to keep things simple with our goal of really wanting to be able to serve our community. What do you need? I think first and foremost, you need colleagues. You need some people who are motivated to be able to help facilitate this. And actually, you could have advocates like Becca, if you knew of them, to help empower the startup as well. But also you do need space to hold the meetings. We started off meeting in person and moved to virtual during COVID, and now we're a hybrid group, but finding a space. Hope Network in Lansing has been very generous in offering their space to us for the 20 years that we've been working. So that's amazing. Also, support from administrators to allow you some time to do this, or just, I know Linda Wells has been a group facilitator with us for a while. Our groups met on Wednesdays. She didn't work on Wednesdays. She donated her time. So there is a little bit of, there's work it within your work, but sometimes also we just have to do things that we feel are important. We decided to never have a budget. We are not a formalized anything. We are, again, we in the spirit of keeping things simple, but you might think a little bit about whether or not you need a budget, and also how you communicate with individuals. We have for a while it was always just my email, and then we finally got smart and made a Lansing area group Gmail account. We don't have a website. We're registered. I'll talk about that in a minute. We're registered in different areas to help people find us. We have a small Facebook group that's closed only for our members. But just things to think about if you were wanting to bring this to your community. This is the article that I mentioned earlier. If you're interested in maybe thinking about how you might want to start up a group, it's beautiful. There are two versions of the article. The one on the right is the more formal peer-reviewed journal article. The one on the left is the more aphasia-friendly peer-reviewed journal article that has lots of great tips like Becca was giving us earlier. So good stuff within here. Also, another resource that might be of interest to you is this from the Latrobe and colleagues over in Australia about some ideas about how you might start a program as well. So I just want to think a little bit though about what is good, bad, challenging, all of these things about being a support group leader. I always come to group. Sometimes I'm not always my cup isn't as full as it should be when I come to group, but I leave feeling that I, have been inspired, that we've got a really beautiful community. So I think that there's some personal things for yourself as a leader, in addition to the community that you have that you're working with, but also just that we've been around for long enough that a lot of our members feel like we're family, and that we really have some opportunities to support one another. You get to know people with aphasia outside of therapy and work, and what life is like, or what some of the challenges are, or what some of their successes are. And that gives you a little bit more insight to have a better idea of what living with aphasia is like, which I think then has helped me in my practice in working with clients in the clinic room too. As with anything, time is always a challenge, right? It's that hot commodity that we never have enough of. Also, things come your way just like they do in the clinic room, but sometimes things come your way as the leader of the group that you need to respond to, but you don't always have the right answer or the bandwidth. Or I know I got a call on Thursday. It's in my voicemail. I was heading here about someone who's learned about our group and is wanting to talk and, connecting and those sorts of things. So there are some things like that that take time. I do try to make sure I make time for that, and then I have a list in my OneDrive folder of like kind of a pre-planned response that has resources about our group and other things, and then try to personalize that to the individual once I connect with them. So there are ways to do that, but we always just can't provide what's needed, right? Which is heartbreaking. That happens in your clinic room as well as within our support group as well. Troubleshooting also can be stressful, whether that's like you can't get the hybrid meeting to work, or somebody's Spectran ride dropped them off at the wrong place, or there's all of those sorts of things to navigate. And that's why I think that there's no way that this group would have lasted if just one person was involved in facilitating it. It really takes a lot of individuals. So how do you find a support group? If you're like, yeah, that's great, Katie, but I'm not down for starting my own support group. So there's a couple places where our clients are looking for support groups and how they find them. So the American Heart Association, which is now supporting the American Stroke Association, which is no longer around, is one place where people look for support groups, and the other is the National Aphasia Association. So I would just encourage you, if you do have a support group in your area, to register it here. We've talked about this at a couple of previous MSHAs. It's hard to find support groups, and so if you've got something great in your community that would be open to individuals, consider registering it here, because this is where people who are in the hospital or living at home are looking for finding out what's going on. But also, you don't have to necessarily find something in your actual physical community. There are lots of beautiful things that are happening online. So one of the things is the Aphasia Recovery Connection. Anybody follow them on Facebook? Okay, I'd love to, the next time we met, everybody was that. Okay, so if you have clients who have aphasia, there are, that should say 20,000+ members. I apologize. I'm glad it's a typo, so I can just acknowledge that. Yeah. 20,000 people who are interested in aphasia are in this community. Okay, so you can join as a clinician. Your clients can join, their family members can join. There's also a separate group for care partners. Clinicians can join that, and care partners can join that as well, because sometimes there are different conversations that are needed. So this is a really great way for you. They have a website, but really all the action happens on Facebook. Another thing that's happened that is a beautiful support group community is Virtual Connections, which is new since pandemic, and it's a collaboration between Aphasia Recovery Connection and Graphica. 7 days a week. 7 days a week.
Yes. Yep.
2 to 5 sessions a day. Free. FREE, free. You can have clients sign up. It's a beautiful community. There's all sorts of different types of opportunities that are happening here. All these links are in our handouts. So I'd just like to say in closing that from our hearts in the Lansing Area Aphasia Support Group, who are now officially 20 years old, that we feel like we want you to know how important it is to connect your clients with other people who are living with things that are similar to them, and consider maybe starting a support group. So that's what I've got. So any questions?
Can you give you have an idea of how many people on average you have at your meetings and also kind of like the format? Are you like doing a topic of discussion?
Yeah, it's variable on all of that. But we have anywhere sometimes 2 or 3, sometimes 18 to 20. It just depends on what's happening or maybe the topic also. I think we actually during pandemic got tighter. We started meeting twice a month we meet once a month officially, but we started meeting twice a month during COVID to help with some of the isolation that all of us were feeling. So, and the format has changed over the years, but we try to the meeting prior select with whoever's there what they're interested in exploring, whether that's a topic or sometimes having a speaker. We do have to train speakers on how to communicate though. So there's the right, so those sorts of things, but it could range from having a topic that we're exploring. Sometimes we read journal articles and talked about them. Sometimes we have a guest speaker coming. Other times we might have something planned, but we just meet people where they're at because it ultimately is a support group. So there's an educational piece that comes with it, but it also is really the opportunity there for them to be able to have conversation. So. Okay, well, we hope that you will at least hook your clients up with the resources that are available and consider, if you're looking around your actual physical community, what you have to support one another. Thanks.
Okay, next I'm calling up Lori Gray, a colleague from Western Michigan University. Lori is an associate professor there. She specializes in mindfulness-based intervention for reducing stress and living well, chronic pain and illness. She is a psychologist. She's a licensed doctoral psychologist and a health and wellness coach. She's certified to teach mindfulness-based stress reduction. She is serving as the director of the Holistic Health and Contemplative Well-Being Department section at Western program. She is a stroke survivor and an advocate since 2017, and she's leading mindful stroke recovery pilot programs. So it's a pleasure to have Lori join us. I don't want to just
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's really a pleasure to be here, and I want to first just thank Katie and Robin for gathering this team so that we could share today. And I'm a little bit of a latecomer coming to this team, as you heard the history that Robin shared. So as a psychologist and a stroke survivor, I started piloting a program that I'll just give you some highlights about. And really just appreciating the privilege of being here to be able to speak, and really an opportunity to thank you all for your expertise. Otherwise, I would not be standing here speaking to you this morning in the most real way. So thank you for the work that you do. Thanks for being here. So I titled this little talk, "Holding a Gentle Space," because it felt to me, both in my experience in stroke recovery and what's needed for ongoing rehabilitation, both inwardly, our own private journey, and also connecting with others, which you're hearing about the power of community and what it means to know you're not alone in your experience, particularly with living well with aphasia and other kinds of communication issues, how important it is to do that whenever possible within community. And for me, that meant also holding a space that feels gentle to ourselves and for others. And I'm saying that for all of you as professionals as well, to hold yourself and the work that you do whenever possible in a gentle space, because you're doing such very challenging work. So, and I've got my little timer here because one thing that flies by for me is time, for better or for worse. So I have to watch it carefully. So I'm going to just share a little bit about the origin story again of why I'm here, which would not have happened most likely if I hadn't had a stroke. So what that recovery journey has been, and I say very specifically thus far, because I am 7 years post, but there are accomplishments and new things I can do literally every day, every week that I couldn't do, and I don't believe in plateaus. So I want to just share a little bit about that with you, and then talk about mindfulness in the context of what we're really leaning toward in bringing to stroke survivors. So a little bit more of an operational, professional term and what the evidence-based research tells us about that. I'll go over very quickly what I just call the mindfulness-based stroke recovery project, which is still in pilot stages. Kind of give you that overview of working with 7 individuals, well, all with aphasia, stroke recovery folks. Some simple ways to begin integrating mindfulness into your personal lives. If you don't have that experience already, what are some simple ways to get started? Final thoughts to take away if there's time, and then I'd love to hear your questions and certainly your feedback as SLPs as I continue growing this work. So the origin story, in 2017, I was a 4-mile-a-day runner, vegetarian. I lead a program in holistic health at Western Michigan University. So the last thing I had on my radar was the possibility of having a stroke. But I had an occluded carotid artery that spontaneously dissected, and my identity and my life's work, what I call the life curriculum, abruptly changed. And spent about 6 weeks in inpatient rehabilitation. An enormous part of that was daily contact, intensified contact with SLPs and many other rehabilitation professionals. And what I noticed was how systemically stressful that environment was for workers and for patients. And thankfully, immediately, even during the stroke event itself, I was relying on my mindfulness practice and being able to pause, to notice my breath, to be with my inner experience. And what I noticed happening in the hospital as soon as I was able, I was doing little stress breaks, little mindful breathing breaks with nurses, with rehabilitation professionals, because what I needed, we talk about patience practice, we're talking about confidence, and sometimes it just meant asking someone in the midst of a session to say, can we just breathe for 30 seconds, you and me? Can we stop and do that together? No one ever told me no. And it made, for me as a patient, a world of difference. And then what I'd hoped is that it would also make the people in giving so much effort, make a difference for all of you as well. So again, 7 years later, I'm still engaged in outpatient. I do a lot of my own rehabilitation, and then this has brought amazing people into my life. So it's been an ongoing, arduous adventure. So mindfulness is really, as you're hearing me allude to, it's really what I just call the power of pausing. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. We do have evidence-based curriculum that I'll share with you briefly about, that comes from the history of mindfulness-based stress reduction, which was founded in the late 70s in a pain clinic at the University of Massachusetts Medical Center by a physician and a professor there named John Kabat-Zinn. And you can find all of this on the handout. So I published an article, and there's I don't know if there's a QR code or a link that you can get to that actual article that tells all this history, if you're interested in learning that in detail. But what John Kabat-Zinn basically defines mindfulness as this capacity of paying attention in the present moment in a particular way without judgment. So in other words, can we just take a moment, notice our breath, even as you're sitting here right now, noticing your posture, noticing the temperature of the room, all the things that are actually happening right now that have nothing to do so much with our thoughts or the internal story about what's happening, but this quality of being. So just this power of pausing. And the second definition is a little bit more of an expanded one that I think relates specifically to what I was trying to bring into the stroke recovery project. Mindfulness is about being fully awake in our lives. It's about perceiving the exquisite vividness of each moment. We also gain immediate access, and this is what I love, to our own powerful inner resources. Our inner resources to contribute to insight, transformation, and healing. So you think about folks with aphasia. I had somewhat severe aphasia for the first 6 to 8 months post, and I felt very invisible. But because of what I knew about mindfulness and my own practice and my capacities as a teacher, I was able to bring that, thankfully, to myself. But imagine if we could bring some elements of that in the immediacy for ourselves as professionals and for our patients. And just that capacity alone is very powerful. So let me just take you quickly through, and again, this is in very, very early stages, and I'm extremely humbled by this experience. So someone read the article that I published in 2020, a nurse practitioner at a neurological institute in Kansas City, Missouri, and she just sent an email. Would you be willing to talk? I'd love to just hear your thoughts. And that turned into a collaboration with her patients. So I was able to take the theoretical model, which was an autoethnography, and then a modified curriculum based on the 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction program. So we were able to actually work with some of her patients. We did 2 cohorts, and basically what we wanted to know is we wanted to be the learners. We wanted these patients to teach us, and I wanted to make sure, well, this isn't just an experience that I brought to the table. Can that be taught and transferred and shared in community with other stroke survivors? So we just asked, what are their lived experiences, both before, during, and after participation in this program? So the focus, and you can hear the mental health emphasis in all of our talks, because the concern for me was around emotional recovery. And that how important that capacity would be to aid ongoing physical recovery, efforts, confidence, motivation, the endurance, the patience, these qualities that you all know are required for long-term rehabilitation. And I knew, I would say, I don't have the luxury of depression right now. My background as a psychologist and as a mindfulness teacher were my greatest assets. And again, how can we bring that to our patients? So the focus was really about emotional recovery. And again, the awareness of what we're already doing well, how that we are already whole as human beings. And this is just a different way. It's a support group in the sense of we're learning some mindfulness meditation skills as a community. And it's a different way of feeling seen and heard. What we basically did was offered 4 focus group interventions across 4 months. But the program itself lasted 8 weeks, weekly meetings, and was all delivered virtually. Now, this is a lengthy slide, forgive me, but this just basically gives you a chance to take a look at what the thematic analysis was of those outcomes. We had 100% participation, and there were all, the twists and turns of everything that you can imagine that would happen with a group that stays together for 8 weeks. But there was nobody who left the group. There was no one who said, well, this was a lot of work, wasn't really worth my time. It was so encouraging, and I would just say personally for me, it was powerful because as we were saying too, that sometimes we have, if we're recovering from stroke, we have aphasia, and we may not have ever met someone else who's in our shoes. For me, as the facilitator, well, these are my people. I had not had that experience, which that had not even occurred to me. So this gives you a sense of what those self-reported outcomes were. Some simple ways to integrate mindfulness. I just always say start with yourselves. For us to start with ourselves as professionals and just take a few minutes. We have so many great apps, short resources of guided meditations. It's just a matter of taking the time, again, the power to pause, for you to stop, listen to a meditation. There's the website I recommend is Dr. John Kabat-Zinn's site, which already has links to apps, guided MP3s. If you really want to take a deep dive, consider taking an MBSR course. It is an 8-week commitment. It's a timely commitment, but I doubt you would regret it. I recommend that highly, and you can find online as well as we have more and more face-to-face groups. And then, so that's what I'm calling mindfulness informed practice, because it will change you, it will change your presence, and it will change the way you are in engagement with your clients. And then if you want to begin offering short mindfulness breaks, I told you 30 seconds to pause in the midst of a session was transformative for me as a patient. So, and I know your time is like of the utmost. Every second of your work, I think, counts. But taking a minute to breathe, to invite your patients and clients, just remembering first that it's about you and your presence. Secondly, maybe there's some ways of integrating it into your client work or offering those things as just simple, accessible resources for your patients. And then some final reflections just to take away, and then I'm eager to hear your questions and your feedback. But just to remember that this power of pausing with your clients and your patients, finding small ways to remind them that they have these powerful inner resources, that they're whole and healthy people just as they are. And you're helping them actualize, grow, heal, transform. That's what I just call the medicine of presence. So you're offering all these amazing therapeutics, and then also it's the how of your humanity engaging makes so much difference. So that's what I'm calling, just creating and sharing this gentle space for growth and recovery, and remembering that we're not alone in our experiences, including living with aphasia. And John Kabat-Zinn has a famous quote that I love: "So long as we're breathing, there's more right than wrong going on with you." Always, always, always. The always, always is what I always had. So, questions? I don't know if we're doing time. We're good. Okay. Thoughts, questions, certainly feedback about. Yes, please.
Did you, patients with aphasia, were most of them verbal as far as, and receptive, they understood?
Yes, so we were careful about the inclusion criteria for the pilot, and making sure that there was with reception, that it was all okay for the participants, moderate, a few severe, what would be categorized as severe aphasia. But what was kind of beautiful about how we arranged these groups is that there were many different ways to participate. It didn't require verbal participation. So as long as there was the receptivity of communication, then we were in good shape. Every participant had some degree of aphasia.
And was family involved?
No, and we would love that to be changed in the future. Yeah, great questions. Yes.
Just about mindfulness in general, do you find yourself, or do people sort of start as they're just practicing like the breathing, or just being aware of just like gratitude, of being thankful, because I know it's supposed to be non-judgmental. Is it okay to like be feeling thankful and good about, and that the mindfulness?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. What often comes out, and I just say to trust emergence, because through the practice and going inward and inviting some inner quiet, then those are often what the expressions are. So rather than suggesting to feel gratitude, noticing that gratitude rises up from the practice, which is really cool to see.
I love this, and I used to be in very metropolitan area communications that were really far away. Traffic and so stressed. And this was such a good way to start our sessions, to bring them into a good space and the good space to work in. And we started from the same.
I love that. I love that. So when it comes by request, that's the best, it's the best way. And just taking time for resets. I just say like, let's pause for a reset. It's a good point to pause. Whoever's doing it. Absolutely. A good reminder for the professional. And what's beautiful is when there's moments where you can reset in a relationship. Yeah. I think that's where the humanity's there. It's very powerful. And so simple. Just remembering to do it when we least feel like we have the time or the patience to do it is when we need to do it the most. That's the hardest part, is just catching that moment. Yeah. Other questions or feedback? Please be in touch anytime. There's email, just refer to the handout. I'd love to talk more so at any time, my door's open. So thank you for.
Yeah, so we've got just a 5 minutes left before you head on to your next thing. But just curious if maybe you could take a moment to think about, what your favorite brag and steel was, or you might have more than one. And what are you going to implement? Thinking about, whether it's a modification of what you heard today, or sparked an idea, or you really want to maybe replicate some of these things. But our hope and our wish for you today is really that you found something inspiring and that you'll give yourself permission to ignite some innovation and consider sharing that innovative practice maybe at a future insurance. So we have about 5 minutes left. Does people have any questions or comments? Or if not, how about a quick pair and share about a takeaway of, what are you thinking about? So pair, share. So thinking it, turn to someone next to you, a little bit of sharing. That means it can get loud in here for a couple of minutes, and then maybe we'll have a couple of people share. So 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes of pair share. I know, coffee's wearing off. It's going.
I take pride with it. I'm going to. I'm sure Robin will me. Did you tell her that there were 36 each? Hopefully we can get a group picture. So, okay. Sure. So, I hope. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to give you the homework and I'm ready for it. There's a decision to 32 pitch. 0. Okay, then C2, 1 0, 3 0, 2 0. Perfect. Thank you.
It's just getting exciting in here. But we've got just a minute, literally a minute left before 10:30. So, would somebody be willing to just give like an under minute? What was the takeaway?
For both of us, we were talking about making the patient the expert is one of our big takeaways, and I've been thinking about, I think as we often do have the like really challenging client in our head when we come to these conferences, and thinking about a particularly challenging client and patient who, but also this reminded me of, I think at this point we've made enough progress that I can start putting him in the driver's seat more in a way I could not initially because his aphasia was so profound. And this being a call to action to me to start initiating those goal-setting conversations and putting him more in the driver's seat.
Great. I love that. Thank you for sharing. And I think as I'm listening to you talk, it's like there's a lot of work to do, but we don't need to do it all. And actually, it's better when we share it with others, right? So thinking about how we empower the adults that we're working with, that are learners, that so really, I think this has been a beautiful community we've had here this morning, and we just want to thank you very much for joining us on this Saturday morning. So we've got an important thing. That might be why you're staying. So the ending number, and we'll repeat the beginning one if you need it, but ending number is 32103020. So it's 32103020. And the beginning number, if you need it, is 32830000. 32830000. Maybe one more zero? 4 zeros. All right. So thank you.